I would like to turn it over to Stanton, who, did I pronounce that right? Who recently joined the NAF team to lead the Future Ready venture.
I'm absolutely thrilled to be joining NAF and to help lead the way to ensure that every young person has the opportunity to choose between 2 internships as they move forward in their educational experience. We, to tell you a little bit about how I came to NAF, and we've been partnering for a long time in the work that I led at the James Irvine Foundation in California that really created the Link Learning movement, which was a collaborative effort to really ensure that that was the primary transformational strategies for high schools, and NAF was a major player in that work, as you all know. But what we've learned, and I came to this work in philanthropy from really working in the communities with young people who had disconnected in New York City, in San Francisco, homeless, runaway youth. And part of our challenge was to re-engage them in education because they had really lost interest and trust in it. And without question, what changed their lives was its connection to what their aspirations were for their career, right? So I think that it is, and we all know, it is a game changer for young people to have access to the opportunity to learn in real world settings, to have professional networks, and to have people that care in industry and business, like we just saw Jason, that are really creating life-transforming opportunities for young people. So thrilled to be here, and very thrilled to be here with leading this panel of amazing people who are doing so much in so many different ways to ensure that more young people have the connection between college and career. So I'm going to start at the far end. And Antonio Manning is the Vice President and Senior Relationship Manager for JPMorgan Chase and company's global philanthropy, particularly Office of Corporate Responsibility. Major focus, if you don't, with JPMorgan Chase, certainly they're sponsoring this session, which is amazing. But they've also made a $250 million investment in helping to close the skills gap that we hear so much about. And they are also they've also been a key supporter of NAF's work-based learning and are one of the founding partners in NAF Track. So Antonio, welcome.
Thank you.
Sitting in the middle is Waymond Jackson, and Waymond is the Vice President of Education and Workforce Development for the Birmingham Business Alliance. And what is amazing about the Birmingham Business Alliance is they've been a really critical partner in the school district's high school redesign efforts, right? They're a real partnership between public and private that's centered on career academies, and obviously NAF is a large part of that solution. And then right next to me is the Mayor of Long Beach, California, Mayor Robert Garcia, where there are a growing number of NAF Academies, and we were looking at the year of planning list going up, so very exciting to have that right on the heels of this conversation. And Mayor Garcia has really been a key voice and an advocate champion in California around the Link Learning movement, particularly with a very bold statement and a bold move that he made really very quickly as putting his action where his mouth was, and made the commitment to double the number of internships available to students in Long Beach through his office. So it is we're going to talk a little bit about what I think is often very siloed activities, and so much a part of what the national, NAF and the national players that we're talking to is really making that connection between what's happening in education, right, but also how that ties to workforce, which we often talk about them as two separate things. And what they are, really, the power of the integration of those is really what we're trying to get at, right? And we're going to talk about today. So we have heard a lot about the skills gap. We know that there is a youth employment crisis in this country. We all know that NAF is part of that solution. But I want to give Antonio a chance to give us some national perspective and share that. Particularly, obviously, JPMorgan Chase has committed $250 million to workforce readiness, and also has a real special focus on youth employment, right? So why is it important to JPMorgan Chase? How does the national, the NAF Academies fit into that picture?
Sure.
Talk about that for everyone.
Well, it was important because we were hearing from our clients, our business clients, and specifically around why they weren't expanding their companies in terms of growth, why they weren't taking out new loans with JPMorgan Chase. And literally the response from our business owners was, we can't grow, we can't expand because we can't fill the talent, we can't fill the current talent pipeline. So the notion of growing and expanding was impossible. So that really led to a series of conversations internally with a number of our business clients, which then led to our creating the New Skills at Work initiative that Ann has mentioned, which is a $250 million 5-year initiative, 10 cities, where we really are sort of doing a deep dive and really trying to address the skills gap. 3 components, one around data, so we want to make sure that we provide as much labor market research that we can better understand which industries will offer the highest potential for job growth. We would then want to take that data and we want to support what I would call mature employment training agencies, both in terms of at the community-based level, but also at the educational level. And then we want to link those efforts to training and education. And we want to make sure that we are investing in aligning the systems that are important in terms of succession. So we launched it last year. We're about 1 year into it. And then we realized, after another series of conversations, that the notion that we did not focus on youth was a huge issue, particularly around summer youth employment. There's a 40% decline in summer youth employment over the last 12 years. So we wanted to address that. And we really wanted to address it not from how we have traditionally addressed youth issues, which we've always focused on the problem, whether it was gang intervention, pregnancy. We actually wanted to focus on the human side of it, the talent side. And so we have, in addition or complementary to that, we have committed an additional $5 million over the next 2 years towards summer youth employment. And it's really about making sure that our youth have the same kinds of opportunities from an employment standpoint that adults have. We want to make sure that, at least from an entry-level standpoint, that they have access to employment opportunities throughout the summer. But if we can get it to be year-round, I think we would be much better.
So, Mayor Garcia, we're close to your backyard. So we talked a little bit about the national level, and I know that you have been, building on what Antonio said, a leader around the summer internship work, and also trying to talk about how that can be expanded beyond summer to really connect to the innovative work that's happening in the school districts, right? But so the connection between workforce and education. So, but help us, everyone in the room, understand like the youth, what does the youth employment issue look like in your backyard? And why does this, matter, the strategies that you're putting in place to tie education and workforce together?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'll start by saying that it's great to be in a room with fellow educators and workforce leaders. I spent 10 years as a college administrator and faculty member, so these issues personally have always been important to me, and certainly as mayor, they rise to the top. I think that one thing that mayors across the country, I think successful mayors across the country understand that the single most important thing that we can do to support economic development is to support and invest in education. And the workforce piece and the internship linked learning piece is incredibly important as a part of that. What we're doing in Long Beach is we've first recognized the fact that we have to create links between the classroom and the experience that's happening at the workplace. We are very fortunate to have a business community that has kind of stepped up to the plate in terms of expanding the internship opportunity. And I'll give you a small example that we've been using in Long Beach to kind of get everyone excited about this program. In Long Beach, you have a school district of about 80,000 public school students, which is a large school system. Long Beach is about 500,000 people. It's certainly one of the larger cities in the country, so it's a big city. Of those 80,000 public school students, about 1,500 of them have access to a linked learning or internship opportunity through the school district. You take a city like Boston. Boston has 50,000 public school students, but 15,000 of them have internships or access to linked learning. So you see the huge disparity that we have in Long Beach from an access point of view. That's typical in a lot of cities across the country, and so we're really stepping up to ensure that we, in this first year, double that and then continue to grow. We've raised money, we've gone out to business leaders, and have found a lot of success in asking business to help. I think the role of mayors in this process is to be facilitators, to be conveners, and to focus on collaboration versus focusing on control. And I think one thing that a lot of mayors, I think, do to their detriment is try to control school systems or try to insert too much politics into the educational system. I think it's our job to facilitate, to support, and then to do what we can to bring in more support for our schools. And so I'm proud that we have some Long Beach folks, I think, that are here in the audience. I hear them.
Long Beach in the house, yes, right?
So I love my Long Beach folks, and we're doing it. So we're gonna double our internships in this first year. We will continue to grow that. It's called in Long Beach, we call it the Mayor's Internship Challenge, and these experiences are also linked, of course, to some type of classroom linked learning experience.
Great. So partnerships with business. But the role that intermediate organizations play in that kind of partnership facilitation is an important, I think, conversation. And I'm sure everybody in this audience has had those opportunities. The Birmingham Business Alliance, Waymond, really played an incredibly strategic partnership role, right, with the school district, right, in envisioning what does a 21st century education look like, right?
Absolutely.
So you've played a critical sort of backbone organization role in moving the pieces, right, and facilitating that kind of partnership. Can you talk a little bit about that, how that happened, why NAF is such, I know, a big part of that revisioning?
Absolutely. And not taking too much credit for the Birmingham Business Alliance, but the Birmingham City School System, which I know several of them are here today, the academies is something that they own.
Yeah.
That's something that they own, from a district and a school level. One of the things that's unique, I think, about our partnership and the way that we're operating, about 5 years ago, our community, the city, the regional organization that we are, an economic development organization, we commissioned a strategic plan, for the entire 7-county region in our area. And so included within that strategic plan was this goal of how do we make our region more competitively with economic development. So much of what Antonio mentioned about the business partners being at the table and saying that I can't find the workers that I need, or in order for us to recruit new industry here, what's the number one thing on their list that they're going to want to see and find? Or in order to retain industries here, what are they looking to do if they want to expand? And so our organization is unique in the sense that we're purely economic development driven. But when we started listening to companies and site selectors and individuals who were looking to make those moves for those companies, for the first time in history, the numbers started showing that it wasn't the cost of doing business and the cost of doing labor, that particular business, the cost of labor, but it was actually the access to talent and access to an available workforce that became what they were looking for as that determining factor for where they were going. So when we envision how we make our region more competitive, we placed within our strategic plan innovative programs in K-12 districts that we really wanted to support and to help. And as a part of that, our business community said, well, let's look around at other places and see what they're doing good. They even had several site visits, I think, to Charlotte, Mecklenburg, and some other places where NAF were involved. And they said that we want to implement career-themed academies or partner to implement career-themed academies with our local school districts here. In particular, the Birmingham City School System, because it plays such a pivotal role in the growth of our region, and with our region having, in the Birmingham area, we more than triple the GDP for the entire state of Alabama. So there are tons of jobs within our region that these kids graduating out of Birmingham City Schools can have access to. So the strategy behind it was, how do we find out what industries or emerging industries are going to drive our region for the next 5, 10, 15 years? And so they commissioned this and came up with that plan and brought out things like, we're big for health sciences, advanced manufacturing, a top 10 banking and finance, insurance area, culinary arts and tourism. So one of the things that we did was working with the school system, they mirrored those academies around the actual industries that drive our region, so then that these kids can have this seamless transition, whether it be into a 2-year role, a 4-year role, and to actual jobs that they would actually have available within the region once they graduated.
Right. So there's a real deliberate effort, I think, to connect the pathway that young people experience through high school and beyond, right? That's informed by workforce, by labor market, and that makes those partnerships happen. So we have a lot of folks here that are, obviously locally trying to build these partnerships, right? So can you help shed some light on how it's effective, like how people can reach out in their own kind of cities and reach out to workforce? And it's a case that I think is easy to make, right? That why it matters, right? Why the pipeline matters. So, and I'll ask anybody to answer that, but Waymond, you did it, so we want to start there, and I'll turn to the mayor next.
Well, I'll say we did it. I won't take any ayes.
Yeah, okay.
I think an example close to home in Alabama, I know of another school district in one of the other larger cities, and their chamber organization, they try to own it. To speak to what Mayor Garcia was saying, to come in and control it, they wanted to own that academy experience within the chamber. And what they found out is that doesn't work. They found out, I mentioned to say that Birmingham owns theirs, is that they've got the leaders, the teachers, the leadership at the table saying that this is the direction that we want to take the school system in. And so from a business community perspective, we kind of look at it and we want to provide data that drives and helps that decision, that you're making. So I think being able to have everyone around the table at the beginning on the forefront, and getting individuals to, whether it's education and business, to speak the same language, for business to understand that there's some deliberativeness that which education moves along with, and then getting educators to understand the need and the speed at which business is trying to address issues that Antonio mentioned about filling those workforce needs.
Thoughts about how you make that connection?
Well, I think you have to start by everyone agreeing that those in the driver's seat have to be the educators and the academic community and those involved in the actual work. And businesses and government and everyone else are supportive to that process, I think is really important. In our case, Long Beach Unified and our school district has been such incredible partners and really leaders in the program that it's easy for us to support that work. And then I think you also have to have clear metrics. I think that for us, we had a very clear metric. We knew that we had 1,500 students in the program. And so we thought, okay, the first great metric for us to measure is to double that to 3,000. So we'll hit that metric here pretty soon. And I think that for us is what worked, is just kind of setting up clear goals and making sure that our educators were at the table every time we made a decision was important for us. And asking. Oftentimes it's easy to come up with a plan, but you got to make the ask. Right. And I think you find that businesses, and I commend JPMorgan Chase for their commitment, you have to ask. And I think businesses want to be asked and they want to be at the table. They want to give out their resources, but we got to get aggressive in making that ask as well.
Couldn't agree more. I think business has a particular role in this, and we have the ability to convene, we have the ability to connect, which I think is extremely critical, particularly when you're talking about workforce opportunities, particularly for our youth. So we can be very good at sort of providing those apprenticeships and internships, connecting organizations like NAF to our network. I think it's critical, particularly when you're talking about youth unemployment, not only to provide the work-based opportunities and the skills-based learning opportunities, but also to connect them to the network. You can do all of the training, but if they don't have a network to connect to, it's all for naught. Many of us who are working now, who have jobs, we got our jobs through people we knew. We picked up the phone call, hey, do you know anybody over at this particular company? We have to open up that network to our young people as well.
One of the, I think, the major goals that we all share, and certainly the leadership at NAF and the board shares, is that the issue of social capital, right, is irreplaceable, right? The access to professional networks that all of you have, made happen in connection to educators is really a big, big piece of that solution. So I want to stop asking the questions, and I'm going to turn. We have time for 3 questions from the audience. We are on a tight schedule, so we're going to limit to 3. And we want to just, I think we're going to get some help in identifying the questions out there. So anybody have a question for these 3 amazing panelists? This is your time. We're bringing a mic over to you. Great.
Hi, good afternoon. First of all, thank you all for taking the time to be here on the panel. My question is for Mr. Antonio. What do you see as the biggest challenge to bring forth other companies such as JPMorgan and other large companies to be on board with these awesome programs?
It's interesting. Oftentimes, it's control. Oftentimes it's territorial. Every company has sort of their own set of interests. They've a different way of doing it. We fight over branding. We fight over visibility. But I think there are certain issues that exist in our community. There's enough of it to go around. So we don't have to fight over this. But one of the biggest ways I think you can be helpful is we have peer conversations. So we are very good at recruiting our peers and other businesses to the table. What we aren't very good at is actually reaching down into the company as well, or to our vendors. We do a lot of vendor relationships, procurement opportunities. So that is another network that remains untapped in terms of how we might access some of these opportunities. But I think in terms of challenges, geography presents a challenge as well. Resources oftentimes present a challenges, but I think it's sort of how you position the conversation, I think is really important in terms of how you recruit companies to deal with the issues.
Great question too. Next question.
Yes, you were just talking about the conversations that you have with people to try to get them into the network that you're trying to create. The Governor's Council in Arizona has a youth summer program. I hadn't thought about reaching out to the mayor of our city, so you've given me a great idea, but the question I still have is, how do I go to him and talk about the model you have? Would that be available to us to kind of look how you've done that, so that we can start approaching local governments about the program you've put together, and then in your words, leverage you to help us with business partnerships as well?
Sure, I think first that personally the best level of government to do this kind of work is mayor's offices, because mayors are working every single day directly with those businesses, whether it's a small community or a larger community. Obviously, you want to have governors and statewide elected officials supporting that work, but mayors are there every day with those chambers of commerce and the different organizations. So I think that's the right approach. We do have a program kind of already rolled out that's with collateral. So what I'll do is I'll make sure we connect and that we get that information out to the network so that you have that information. We've done a lot of work in getting this kind of internship challenge, as we're calling it, established in Long Beach, and so we'd be happy to send that out. And I want to say one other thing, which I think is really, really important, particularly because I see the diversity and difference in this room, is that this issue is completely nonpartisan. So everyone loves this issue. So whether they're the mayors or the institutions are left or right or Democrat, Republican, Independent, everyone wants to support young people getting access to jobs and experience for the classroom. And so you'll find that almost anyone, regardless of where they're from, will be supportive of programs like this.
And I also think one of the, with the first question regarding how do you get some other businesses to the table, one of the things that I'm learning and seeing from, operating in a chamber organization where you have 1,000 or so members is that the business community really wants to feel that they're kind of galvanized behind maybe one or two plans and that they're not getting, hit from every different direction. So when school districts and can come to them in a very unified way of saying this is the direction that we're going in and lay out a plan that's kind of based off of data, then I think that works to really start bringing folks in.
Fantastic and really practical application of how other folks can do what you have done in your cities. Is there one last question? Okay.
Devin German. I'm from Seaboard, North Carolina, but Northampton County School is where I work at. My question was similar to the last question, but it's more direct and personal because I care about our students. You spoke of sharing the plan with us. How can I relay, or can I give you my information today so that way I can link, I guess, our local mayors or representatives with you all so that can be shared?
Absolutely. So I will figure out the best way to do that. I have some folks that are here with me.
Yep.
They're probably on the right over here. Tim, where are you? Okay, so we'll connect directly with Tim here in a minute. But I also, you can email me at mayor@longbeach.gov, which is not too hard to remember. And I will get back to you if you email. It's mayor@longbeach.gov, and we'll get NAF the information to somehow distribute at least what we're doing.
Thank you. So want to thank the three of you for taking time to be here. I think what's resounding here is not only the professional commitment of these three men, but also the personal commitment to make this happen for young people across the country. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your perspectives.
Thanks, guys.